We're now about a third of the way through Season of the Worthy, with all bunkers and Seraph Towers unlocked, and Trials of Osiris back in full swing. However, while we're waiting for the rest of the season to unfold, I want to talk about a growing issue in the game, a general feeling of boredom that's creeping in seasonally, but also on the day-to-day. Welcome everyone to another Embrace Destiny video, Kaz PhD here. Today we're going to talk about our motivation to play, seasonal storytelling, and world building. Since Shadowkeep, Destiny has switched more heavily to the seasonal model, and there's been growing frustration from the community. Perhaps you've seen some videos, rants on Reddit and Twitter, or maybe you felt it yourself, a growing sense of discomfort in the game right now. Specific issues about balance and trials aside, there's a strong feeling of boredom, of dissatisfaction, frustration, and a lack of purpose with the structure of the seasons, narratively as well as the loot and grind. And the motivation to play right now feels very few and far between. Destiny feels more like a monster of the season kind of game rather than some epic interconnected saga right now. As I said, ever since Shadowkeep, maybe before, bounty farming has been our main means of progression. Want to level up? Do bounties. Want the seasonal mods? Bounties. Bounties, bounties, bounties. It's not exactly a bad system, although I think we can all agree that activities should be just as rewarding. We've heard a few times from Bungie recently that they are working on this, that activities will reward pinnacles and the like, but that's not exactly my issue. No, the issue is that the day-to-day in Destiny is becoming less and less relevant or interesting, and Bungie, in my opinion, is not utilizing their world in telling the story, and by doing that, as well as keeping other things quite shallow, the reasons to play are quite lacking. See, in order for activities in Destiny to have meaning, to have purpose and draw us in, I think they need some, preferably all, of these elements. Number 1, the loot. The prize needs to be rewarding. Weapons, ships, armor, triumph, gear, it needs to be worth our time. Number 2, the grind. The actual journey to getting the loot needs to be interesting, fun, and show progression. It's a video game after all, it should be fun, and we should all feel as if our time is being put to good use. And number 3, the story or emotional connection. It has to have narrative or emotional value. Even just having Galahorn drop from a strike boss, while not narratively interesting, it's an emotional connection, it's a player's story. Now most players, I think, are mostly concerned with numbers 1 and 2. Destiny is a looter shooter, so these aspects need to be upfront and awesome. Destiny has always struggled with number 3, but we'll come back to that. I think that Destiny is in a half decent place with number 1, with the gear, with the loot. There are a lot of great guns and armor and rolls out there, and the path to getting them is fairly direct. Maybe not always the most interesting, I'm looking at you, Obelisk Fractaline, but still rewarding. Number 2, the journey has been suffering for a while, in most cases. Mechanically, while we all may be getting a little tired of menagerie-like activities and bounties, I think it has been somewhat fun seeing these seasonal events come around and mix things up even a little. While seasonal menagerie event activities may be getting old, the path to great gear is straightforward, and bunkers, towers, legendary lost sectors, these are interesting takes on revitalizing and expanding on activities we already took for granted. Both due to game file size and also for reasons of cost and time efficiency, I think Bungie is at its best when it adds depth or refreshes what we already have alongside new ideas. We have so many destinations, so many activities, and while we don't necessarily want reskins, and we all want new things, I think it's better when Bungie is able to make something fresh again. Give us reasons to go back to certain destinations and activities. Give the world more meaning. And it's likely easier for the dev team. Easier to make systems to take us back to a world rather than adding a new one, I think. As I said, for an activity to matter, it should have at least one of those elements above. The problem I'm now seeing is that because number 3 rarely matters as much, it cannot help or to step in if numbers 1 and 2 become weak. Let's look at this season. Category 1 features the new Seraph weapons and seasonal mods. Those mods are important to remember because while the weapons themselves don't seem to run with many godlike reload damage perks, The weapons are meant to be paired with the seasonal mods. So even though my new auto rifle isn't as great as last season's, I can now generate Warmind cells and blow up my enemy. That's cool. For many who aren't as invested in making in-game, in-depth builds, the gear may fall a little short. Personally, I think that's okay. It's still new, it's still interesting, and it will stay relevant for a few seasons given how seasonal mods and upcoming weapon retirement are looking. But for many, on the surface, Category 1 is a little lackluster. If you tally it, there are less than a dozen new weapons with the bunker, plus the Iron Banner ritual weapon, the Point of the Stag. If you wanted to count Year 1 weapons with Year 3 perks as new, then technically there are a lot more weapons, but it doesn't feel new or exciting, and that's the problem. Category 2, aka the grind, well, we have bounties galore, and we have bunkers, legendary lost sectors, and Seraph Towers as the main events. The gameplay loop here is clear the bunker, do towers and lost sectors and other activities to get bits, level up the bunker to buy weapons, farm that gear. On the positive side, this works fairly well mechanically, at least at first. The bunkers are fun and easily soloable once you hit high enough power. The ability to spawn Valkyries and heavy frames is pretty cool, and the legendary lost sectors make them interesting and challenging again. But really though, how cool is it to 3D print a robot friend to help you? I'm constantly cheering them on and making new robot friends. It's cool to see the NPC actually help us in the game for a change. The Seraph Towers are decently fun and I'm enjoying them. It's cool to hear all the dialogue and feel like I'm actually helping empower Rasputin. It's a new twist on a public event that hasn't really changed in 3 years. However, again, for many, I think this category falls short. Seraph Towers are fun, but they can be frustrating for the same reason Escalation Protocol and the Vex Invasion were. No matchmaking, not able to bring in more than a few friends, and relying on blueberries. I do like that bunker bounties have the option between PvP and PvE tasks, but I think that many will feel that the grind is too samey, too familiar. It's a fine line to walk. Bungie likely needs to, and probably should, reuse elements in the game to make things feel new without adding too much cost or effort and burning themselves out. But if the reskin is too familiar, or in this case doesn't provide longevity, people feel bored, burned out. Longevity is the main issue with this season, as far as category number 2 is concerned. All the events are pretty cool, but they don't really change too much, and after you've done them once or twice or a few times, why do them again? Seriously, why? The only reason to do anything right now is to get bits, then upgrade the bunker to get the weapons and mods. Bungie will always struggle with categories 1 and 2. The gear has to be rewarding, if not, the grind should be interesting. You don't necessarily need both, if at least one of them is worthwhile. Farming lost sectors may not be fun for you, but getting that god-rolled Tatara gaze makes it worth it. Or maybe, the new seasonal weapons aren't that interesting for you, but you like the season's activities. This is Destiny's key formula, honestly. Some great mix of categories 1 and 2, some crazy lore in the background, and a splash of number 3. Category number 3, the story, the narrative, the emotional connection to the world, doesn't feel like it's that important, I don't think, to most players. Maybe I'm wrong. For the longest time, it felt like it wasn't even that important to Bungie, considering how removed this was from the main experience. But while the lore continues to impress, and the game has improved on delivering its story, the day-to-day is still lacking. We'll soon see why this is important, why it should matter, even to those players who are only focused on the loot and the grind. Let's look closer. Season of the Worthy starts with a cutscene telling us about the main threat. Great, we all got it. The main activities are related to that, empowering Rasputin, and it's really cool that every new bunker we clear features Anna, Rasputin, and Zavala. They are there, delivering exposition, helping us feel like we're making a difference. Clearing bunkers, doing Seraph Towers, these have meaning, at least at first. When you visit the final bunker, you get a pretty interesting cutscene, and the solar system maps in all the bunkers reveal that the pyramids are coming. This is pretty cool to players like me. It builds story and suspense, but it doesn't give us more to do in the meantime, which is really a problem. The season doesn't have legs, it doesn't have longevity. We clear the bunker, do a few towers, our progression is only demonstrated by the gear that we get, not on the world we're interacting with. We wait for the next tower, and then what? A short cut scene at the end of the season where Rasputin shoots the Almighty out of the sky? Will our participation actually make a difference? We've got Guardian Games and Grandmaster Nightfalls coming up. What's our reason for doing those? Some improved chances at gear? Why would we push ourselves for these Nightfalls? Just for the title? The trouble is, Category 3 doesn't have much longevity right now, and because Categories 1 and 2, the loot and the grind, are already lacking, the story can't make up the difference. Now you may be thinking, so? Kaz? You said before that the story usually lacks, and most of us don't really care. So what's the point? My point is that story can help when Categories 1 and 2 fall short. I love Destiny's world, its universe, and I of course view Category 3 as just as important as the rest. But I get it. For most of the community, it's a looter-shooter, not a looter-shooter storyteller? I don't know, some rhyme. However, I think that even the most gear-focused player will feel more worth and value from the game if story is made a little more prominent, and you'll soon see how it will even help with the loot grind. When that gear you chase isn't as great and the only activities in the game feel a little stale, story elements will at least make you feel like there's a reason to come back, like there's a reason for doing what you're doing. Bungie is all about making worlds that inspire communities, but we ever so rarely feel like we're actually impacting the world we're playing in. Now, Bungie has limited resources, I keep telling myself that. Voice acting is expensive, especially when every line has to be dubbed into numerous languages, and cutscenes are very expensive. But I believe that Bungie can utilize their resources more efficiently, and not only will that help make specific quests and seasons feel more interesting and emotionally rewarding, but it will help with Categories 1 and 2, helping the world and game matter to players, and giving us more to do. Luke Smith mentioned in his director's cuts that they are hoping to connect the season more closely with the game itself, that instead of there being some kind of seasonal event added on top of the game elements would reflect more of the season. We're not seeing that yet. Now the easiest way to think of this is to actually think of the Dawning. Treat the Dawning like a season in your mind, and you'll see how the tower, all the activities are changed, even just slightly to reflect the event. Decorations, side quests, bounties involving most NPCs and destinations, and a new mechanic system. A few dawnings ago, strikes even had clusters of snowballs you could throw at enemies, and in this way, the Dawning really felt like it was happening everywhere, not just at the tower. However, currently, seasons feel very disconnected from the rest of the game, the rest of the Destiny universe. Aside from Zavala, Anna, our Guardian, and Rasputin, there's only been one other NPC who has even mentioned the looming threat of the Almighty, Saint 14. If you stand by him long enough, he'll get angry that the Almighty is coming to smash his birds. This disconnect, while frustrating for a player like me who likes the story and universe, is also frustrating for the general player, because there's an entire world not being utilized. Yeah, you can get bits for your bunkers by doing anything in the game, so technically there's a connection, but it's so loose, and it's not any different from seasons past. None of the activities have been changed in any way to reflect the season or to make them interesting or make them worthwhile to coming back into. Rather than the Dawning, where strikes had snowballs, or there were special bounties with a more festive flair, we have seasons added on top of the world, and while new bunkers and towers are cool, for the rest of the game, it's business as usual. We could have had Valkyries in Strikes. We could have had heavy frames in Nightfalls. Instead, those other activities haven't changed at all, and there's no motivation to do them once you hit the power level cap of 1,000. The soft cap. Now let's look at some other characters in the game and how they might react to the Almighty. Let's look at this a little bit from a story perspective and then try to apply it back mechanically. Why isn't Spider taking advantage of the situation? He could prey on our desperation for trying to save the city, but also not want to lose his favorite customer, i.e. the Guardians who made him super rich last season. Maybe bounties from Spider could cost more ghost fragments, but reward more bits. That way you're encouraged to do things on the Tangled Shore, still working on your seasonal grind. Adventures could reward more legendary shards or glimmer or something, which you could turn into Spider for more bits or planetary materials. You know who would really understand having her home threatened by a looming threat? Petrovenge. What does she have to say about this? Perhaps she offers forgiveness if you're not as around as much to help with the Dreaming City. Perhaps she has information to offer on Rasputin or the Almighty or some other factor for the price of your continued help. Same as before, bounties and activities reward bits or something related to the season. Ada 1 may lament not having something more powerful to fight this threat. The Black Armory, after all, was designed to help humanity fight its biggest threats. Maybe all forges are open and accessible for the season. More bounties can be held or completed by Guardians. Or again, bounties can reward bits or something related to Rasputin and the bunker. The bunkers themselves are a cool idea, but how come we're not expected to do more on Mars, where Rasputin is? You know what? Rasputin should offer to connect his intel to our ghosts, offering resource and chest finders for every location when you've cleared the bunker for that day. The mechanic we have this season of Rasputin's frames collecting resources for us is pretty cool, but it's bugged. It doesn't give you as much, and it's not very worthwhile. You get a couple of resources. I don't even know what the reset is. Every day, every few hours. I could go outside with my ghost and I could get more. What about Drifter? All he wants to do is survive. Why is the Drifter still at the tower? Does he know about the Almighty? Maybe nobody told him. Maybe it's being kept secret. Zavala's not telling anyone because he doesn't want us to panic. But still, Drifter could offer more rewards from the Derelict, aka the Reckoning. His whole thing is do whatever you can to survive, so maybe he wants you in his good graces. He wants you to forget Earth and come live on his space rock. The bottom line here is that things in Destiny are disconnected. Big events should involve more than a chosen few. While cutscenes and dialogue are expensive, there are ways to better harmonize narrative and mechanics in order to provide the best of both. Get more NPCs involved, and the world and the events in it feel more alive. Find a way to give us progress outside of bounties, or make bounties complementary to other experiences, and we'll all be much happier. If the above ideas had been implemented, we would still likely feel that this season is a little light, but at least there would be more to do, more reason to do it, and the world would feel more alive and active. We would be okay with this being kind of the calm before the storm of next season and the season after. I don't think I'm wrong when I say that players are expecting the big storylines to come to a head, and soon. The Darkness, the Pyramids, Aldrin, Mara Sov, the Dreaming City. Before that, in these seasons here and now, we're gathering allies, building our defenses, discovering more about our enemy. But Bungie, please, you need to consider how to keep players playing, engaged in the material, both near and long term. How to involve your players more and utilize the resources you have. By adding depth to the world through a remodeling of bounties, quests, adventures, NPCs, and rewards, you add meaning to parts of the game that are currently collecting dust. You give players more things to do, but more importantly, more reasons to play. While not necessarily adding more loot, you expand in category number 2, the grind, while adding depth to category number 3, giving a more narratively interesting, involved, emotional connection to the game, which strengthens players' enjoyment and commitment. If I had to shorten this video to 2 sentences, it would be this. Destiny needs more depth in its day-to-day and seasonal goals, both narratively and mechanically, to give everyone more reasons to play. When new content is unavailable, the seasonal story should be threaded through more activities, NPCs, and bounties to provide more meaning and give us purpose. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the video. What do you think? How are you feeling? Are you enjoying the season? If you're not, then I propose 2 things. 1. Leave some constructive comments in the comments below. And 2. Consider taking a break. Destiny is a fantastic game, and it can never really be the most amazing game for everyone all the time. Come back when you feel more enthusiastic. Number 3, if you feel like playing the game but you have no reason to play, consider helping others. Routinely on my Twitch channel, you can see a link down below, I go back and I help people with Outbreak, Whisper, Thorn, all that kind of stuff. And while it's a little boring to do those activities over and over again, it keeps me in the game. It helps players get the stuff done that they weren't able to do, and it makes me feel like I have a purpose. To Bungie, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. It's not an easy time right now, especially catering to a community that swings high and low in our interest. I hope this video was helpful. I hope we see this kind of immersion built more into the game, and I hope this doesn't come across as a rant video, because I am liking some of the ideas and some of the new experiences. I just want to offer ways to deepen it and add to the longevity of play. Thank you all very much for watching. As always, I appreciate your time and attention. Feel free to come check me out on Twitter, Discord, Twitch. Links are below, and I'll see you Guardians out there. Bye now.